That was Tim Rogner with Southern California off his acoustic work that he's been doing. But now we get a chance to talk again with our buddy, fellow podcaster, Bokeen from Consumption Junction. Bokeen, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, what's been the show going on lately? Was that fucking English? What I just said?
What you been got going on?
So, you do the show pretty much weekly. Then you went live for a little bit. How's that been going on?
We backed off the live for a little bit. We were doing live on Sunday nights, and what had happened was we had a guest who was Skyping in, and they were on the other side of the house from their router, and their connection sucked and their sound sucked, so we had a pretty crappy episode. And since then, we haven't gotten back into the live game. I think for a little bit, it kind of scared us about doing live, but lately it's just been scheduling. We haven't had the chance to go live again, so everything has been pre-recorded for the last few months.
All right, yeah, I've been liking the pre-recording thing that we do, but me and Louie were live for a long time, but we didn't have the chat option that you had. We invited Google Chat people, but we didn't have an actual on-website chat that you had.
Yeah, that was really nice. We were streaming through livestream.com, and the chat was great because even if we only got 6 or 7 people listening live and then everybody else listening later on, you were there a couple times, I believe. It was a lively conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, fun stuff.
For sure.
Now, I was like Louie, if we had a live chat that we could see while we were on, how would you be distracted by that? Because at first it sounded like you guys were, and then you guys had a plan and you guys were solid after that.
Yeah, it was very distracting at first, and then we said, okay, we're going to pause at points and look at the chat because Ms. Chartreuse would be talking, my co-host, and I wouldn't be listening to a damn thing she said. So there was an episode or two that we did that was kind of choppy.
How would you handle that, Louie, if you had a running tab going?
Well, you figure, since you and I aren't doing it, from the same location, I've usually kind of got one eye on what I've got coming in from you, or sending something else back to you to keep communication going in an interview, whatever the case may be. So I guess I'm already kind of dividing my attention, but I don't know. It would probably throw me off having too much going on at once.
Yeah, it's weird
I could definitely see tuning out and not hearing what's actually being said, the actual response to a question, because I'm looking at somebody else's input.
Yeah, when we're doing the show, he's in his house, I'm in my house, and not only are we talking to each other on the air, but we're also talking to each other on Google Chat. So it is kind of weird.
Yeah, I would think that, I don't know that we could pull it off if we weren't in the same room because all the time we've got these, what you guys would do through Google Chat, these nonverbal cues, and that was really important when it came to the chat because, if I saw something really good come through, if I took a peek, I'd wave my arms or something, point to the screen. So it really does help for coordination of that.
Now, who does do you have an intern yet, or do you guys get each other drinks? I'm talking, can you pour me something?
I'm the intern, because I do the podcast with my girlfriend, Ms. Chartreuse, and therefore I'm responsible for fetching the drinks, and then she's typically drinking wine, so she keeps it on the table here. We actually do all the recording here in the kitchen. And then, I keep my bottle of Maker's Mark or Glenlivet or whatever I'm working on close by as well, but it's really my responsibility.
All right, so your show is more of it's a single topic discussion. You go on for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. So I think for the rest of this interview, we'll do something along the lines of that. We picked out a topic that we think is pretty good. So I guess we'll start this discussion. Like politeness. It's a lot of shows do that. They talk about this is polite. It's polite. It's good manners when you do this. It's good manners when you do that. But over politeness really hasn't been talked about a whole lot.
No, you're right. And that article that you sent over does talk about how over politeness can be a life and death situation in some cases.
And life and death is that's the worst. But I think for most people, it's more of an annoying thing where you see someone all right, you can go, your job's over.
Well, I get what you're saying about over politeness because it's a social obligation to some extent, and I always do the polite hold the door open thing when it's my girlfriend or my mom or my sister or stuff like that. But I've actually recently taken the habit of eschewing some of that stuff because I work in, for example, in a building, 7-story building with an elevator. And I used to do the fucking elevator dance where, oh, somebody's coming, I gotta hit the button, and they're just trotting along all slow, and I hold the open button, and they finally come in the elevator. Now there's someone else, and I'm holding the button again. Now the elevator's buzzing because the door's been open too long, and screw it. So I actually don't do any of that anymore. I get in the elevator, and if it's a coworker I see kind of trotting in, that's fine. But if you work on one of the other 6 floors, I don't got your back there. I'm sorry.
What I did in the elevator at the Illinois Center, and that's a much taller building, that's a 30-story one, is if I'm the only one in the elevator, I'd walk in, I'd get to the opposite corner where the main flow of traffic can't see me. So I can conceivably not see them.
Okay, you go to great extents to avoid having to even deal with the politeness issue.
But I will be polite if they're there. Just if I didn't see them, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. I don't know that I wasn't polite because I couldn't see you from my vantage point here in the far corner of the elevator.
Where I'm crawled up into a small ball to make myself as least visible as possible.
And also check your cell phone too. You're on your cell phone. You're checking scores. Oh, I didn't see you in the crack of that elevator. Sorry, the door shut on you. There's 6 more elevators. Don't worry about it.
Well, here, the thing is, you and me, Tinky, we take very different approaches because while you'd kind of sneak into that corner where you couldn't be seen, I'll just stand there. I'll make eye contact with the person and just let it happen. I don't feel any shame about that either. I just let it roll.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, but in either case, both of our pantses are off, right? Pantses. My pants is off, definitely. How bad am I to take this bad grammar? my pants is off. Yeah. I need some salvia.
Oh, that'll help. That'll help, definitely.
All right, so you mentioned opening the door for people. Now, it'll put you in this situation here for over politeness. Polite is opening the door for the several people behind you. You're like, oh, after you, after you, after you. Now you see maybe 6-7 feet away, there's another person. Do you or don't you?
No, I don't, because this is another one that I've kind of given some thought to, and I'll do hey, I'm holding the door open, hey, you guys go ahead if it's me and a couple coworkers coming back in from a smoke or something like that. But when it comes to the hold the door open for strangers, I've taken kind of the middle ground where I don't just let it slam on their face, but I hold my arm out and let them grab the door, and then it is their responsibility. That's a relay, man. I just passed you the baton. So now you're holding the door for yourself, and if you want to stand there and wait for 7 people to come through or anything like that, that's on you. But hey, I'm only meeting you halfway on that in that social situation.
I've let the door be its own timer. If I let go of the door and the door slowly starts to shut, whatever that time is, the door is completely shut. That's the time. That's like what I've given myself now. Like if you're going to be there at an open door anyway, you weren't expecting someone to be at the door holding it for you. So you're going to go through the same work that you were going to go through. That's the timer I give.
Well, knowing what you do in elevators, I'm not surprised that your attitude is to open the door and then run through it as quickly as possible so that nobody can see you holding the door.
With a stopwatch. No, they were not there within the 2.5 seconds it took for that door to close, so I have no responsibility there.
And I'll wait on the other side, too, with the stopwatch.
Nice.
Now, you are in the Bridgeport area of Chicago. Chicago's lovely and beautiful south side.
Absolutely.
Now, you've dealt with a lot of downtown stuff. Me and Louie both live in the suburbs. Have you noticed that the distance you get from downtown, and Bridgeport, that would be the first, if you draw like concentric circles going out of downtown, it would, of the people on the show now, it reaches you first. The distance of like when you're on a sidewalk walking across a street, the time someone will wait for you to cross goes up the further you get from downtown.
As opposed to, say, just driving through and cutting you off as a pedestrian, that type of thing?
In Chicago, for some reason, I've walked a lot downtown dealing with train station, and the radio station I worked at was downtown. So I walked a lot of streets in the downtown area. And the drivers they do the math. They're like, okay, he is there. In 7 seconds, he won't be there, so I'm just going to drive there. They're like, okay. It's almost like a choreographed dance that drivers and pedestrians do in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But in the suburbs, they will wait like 30 seconds, causing traffic jams and possible accidents.
Well, and I don't even think that that's a conscious matter of politeness per se. What I think that is when you're driving downtown or driving in the city, you're dealing with a lot more pedestrians than if you're kicking in Elk Grove Village or something like that. So, you know, like I drive, 4 miles to work up Hallstead every fucking day. I encounter at least, you know, by UIC, you know, including UIC and Greektown, at least 200 pedestrians, at least 15, 20 people on bikes. So, like, in my mind, it's just that I don't do that long waiting thing. It's not because I'm a city dweller. It's because if I did that, instead of taking 20 minutes to get to work, it would take me 4.5 hours. But now if I'm out, you know, flip that around, if I'm in Elk Grove Village, if I'm in Schaumburg, if I'm something like that, I'll change my behavior. I'll sit there and wait for you because I'm not going to have to wait for 10 other people after you. I think it might be a product of the volume of folks you're interacting with as opposed to downtown drivers are a-holes compared to folks out in the suburbs.
I think another part of that is just out in the suburbs, I think, I don't even think politeness even comes into it sometimes. It's just a situation where the pedestrian that's going to be inconveniencing people by strolling, you know, and crossing a street when they shouldn't or whatever the case may be, they don't have as healthy a fear of drivers. Like, and I've noticed I'm different. If I'm walking around in the city, my head's on a swivel. I assume that any vehicle anywhere around me is going to run me over if I'm somewhere I'm not supposed to be. And in the suburbs, I am much more leisurely. I'm like, oh, they're going to slow down. I don't have to worry about it. They're not in a hurry to get anywhere. They're not in the city. I'm fine.
That's a really valid point because you don't see the painted white bikes chained to underpasses out in Franklin Park as much as you do in the city. So that's a really good point.
Now, as a walker myself, I usually walk as much as I can because I found it's good exercise and I don't have to pay for a car anymore. So walking downtown as much as I did, now I'm walking in the suburbs. And even when I did walk downtown, I still walked in all over Aurora, getting everywhere when I lived out there. And I would notice I'm like 30 seconds away from hitting this intersection. If I see someone waiting for me, sometimes I'll just stop and tie my shoe just to let this person know, like, you can go, asshole. And I'm mad at them. I don't know why I'm mad at them for stopping, but, like, you are holding up some type of lane of traffic. I'm not going to be there for another 30 seconds. You have all the time. Just go. Or I'll find myself crossing, like, I'll leave the sidewalk, cross in the middle of a road away from the crosswalk, just because when I'm in the crosswalk, it's confusing to people.
Wait, you kneel down and tie your shoe? You've got some weird ways of dealing with this, man. Because I would just, you know, in that situation, I would nod my head and just wave, like, go on, man, go on, I'm all good. Like,
I'll pretend I'm getting a phone call. Oh, hold on. You can go.
You've got strange ways of dealing with this, man, that's for sure.
He's got strange ways of dealing with everything.
I do. Ways that I've avoided talking to specific people. Like, one of my former coworkers said that it was like just fun watching me avoid other people. So yeah, but this walking thing, like, what's a good example? I guess it would be like all the times with Aurora. I'm walking by a mall, and the right-hand lane of Route 59, it gets backed up just from people trying to turn right into the mall to begin with. And now, like, this person's waiting for me. Like, 4 people can cross before I do. So just go, and then I'll just kind of cut into the parking lot because I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to see what's going to happen with the accident. Because not only that, I was also a traffic reporter. If they crash, now I'm responsible for that. Oh, damn it! Now I got to call the Aurora police, and I'm mad at them. I'm throwing rocks through their windows now. If my head could light them on fire, they would totally be bursting into flames.
Wow, you're thinking through this through 15 different logical steps of what's going to happen. Like, this person's waiting for me, so the traffic's going to back up. So then the one guy who's texting on his BlackBerry is going to cause a 17-car pileup, and I'm responsible for these deaths. You've really thought that one through.
Every walk I did, I think 15 steps ahead.
Nice.
Now, this article did mention something. Words being taken the wrong way. So if someone's being over polite to, let's say, a pilot who kind of needs an abrupt, curt language to realize the situation that's going on, and that could be misinterpreted as, oh, it's not that serious because she's not that serious about her language. I thought about texting, Twitter, any type of social media where there isn't a sarcasm font, how many fights have been started, and maybe how many friendships have been lost, maybe on an even temporary level, but a word is typed or a phrase is typed, and it's misinterpreted because the meaning was mistaken.
No, that's a common thing, and I'm always wishing for that sarcasm font, because nothing's worse than, I mean, I haven't gotten into fights with people, but nothing's worse than saying something and making a joke about it. Wow, Tim Tebow's accuracy is just incredible. He might be one of the best in the league. Throw that out there last Sunday, and I got people, dude, are you serious? Are you watching this game? He's like 6 for 22. I'm like, are you not familiar with the concept of sarcasm? Because that's the angle I was coming at it from.
Exactly. Like they're working on it. I believe they're they think they might be able to put italics on simple forms of communication to possibly do that as a sarcasm font.
Me and a couple coworkers actually in email picked a font. It was copper plate Gothic or something like that. It looks like you'd see, on a bank's business card or some shit like that, and that is the sarcasm font that we were using.
Alrighty, let's see, what else? Louis, you were gonna, or was that just a cough?
No. I love that you guys actually picked a specific font to be the sarcasm font, and I think I'm gonna need to get everybody that I email to get in on that too, and understand that I use a specific font. That is my sarcasm font, because my sarcasm translates very, very poorly to the written word. And again, it has never resulted in me getting into, a huge fight. I've never lost friends over it, but I've had several email exchanges after a comment that I thought was just dripping with sarcasm and was taken seriously and misinterpreted, and I at least had to try and smooth things over after the fact.
Ooh, that's brutal. And I strongly encourage you to do the sarcasm font, but the one thing, it's kind of a meta thing. We went with that copperplate Gothic because, if you do your sarcasm font as Comic Sans, that's so very literal, So you got to select something that looks formal so that it indicates that it's sarcasm, and the selection of the font itself is sarcastic. I know your guys' minds are blown now.
That I can't even wrap my head around it now.
And I didn't find the salvia yet, so I can't even properly have my mind blown. Now, here's another form of over-politeness where you are actually in the right with your politeness, but the person is not accepting it. Have you ever had this happen? It was either with disabled people or the elderly? Like, I've gotten actually one time, it was kind of off topic, but I got into a fight with this old woman at the Hancock Tower because she was pushing the revolving door. And I was in there, and I was fiddling around with my backpack, and I'm like, okay, well, she's pushing it. Then another guy came, he was leaving the Hancock, and I'm like, okay, well, I can fiddle around with this and kind of not push. And then she waited for him. She got out and then waited for me and said that the door is too heavy, that it was full of people. She can't push it by herself, that I should have helped push. And I'm like, I'm not even going to sit here and explain to you how a revolving door works. But, was I in the wrong? Cause there were four people, me, two other people, and this old woman that were involved in the revolving door process. And she singled me out for not pushing hard enough because the door's too heavy. I guess we added weight to the door.
No, see, none of this makes sense because I made the joke the other day, went out, to dinner with my girlfriend, and I made the joke as we approached the revolving door. Man, I'm so rude, I can't, hold this door open for you. Oh, wait, I'll push it for you. And, just completely kidding around. The thing is, there is no established etiquette around the revolving door other than don't be a dick and don't stop the door. Or, no horseplay within the revolving door. Other than that, there's not like this established, it's an old lady, you gotta help her. Hey, come over here, buddy, let's give this thing a shove because this frail old lady's trying to get through the door. None of that exists. We don't have social rules wrapped around that. There's no unwritten rules other than the ones that I mentioned about revolving doors. So I don't see how the hell you were in the wrong. How would you know? Now, if she asked, was like, yo, can you help me with this? And you're like, fuck you, old bird. That's a different story, but you didn't do that.
No, like, what if none of us were in the door and she was alone going through this? She looked like she was doing just fine. I was just adjusting my backpack and realized this door is moving without my assistance. I'm gonna, play with my headphones for a little bit. Yeah, I have no problem with that. She's not having it. I was a rude gentleman.
In the world that she envisions, where you're going to give the door a shove as well, that's where chaos rules. Because you're right, that door's already moving. What? So everybody who jumps in has to give it an old push. Do you know how fast that thing's going to be moving? And once it's rush hour, once it's 8 o'clock in the morning and people are getting to work, that's pure chaos. She's way off base.
Now I had another one. She wasn't mad, but I was like, I need to say something soon, or give a nod to maybe another family member. I used to be a pizza delivery guy, and I had delivered pizza at least once a week to this woman, and she had a very serious case of Parkinson's. And she would always pay, it would be like $13.70 something, and it'd be like a 10 and quarters I'm getting. And judging from the information I'm giving, you guys can figure out what's kind of happening here. So she gives me the 10 with the shaky hand, and then kind of starts giving me some change in one hand, and then the change usually falls. And every time there's like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old like grandson who's like, can I give them change? And I'm like, yeah. Can he pay me? Please, come on, please let him pay me. give the kid a thrill, because I don't want to sit here for 5 minutes collecting change from the ground.
And so. In your mind, is she the impolite one because she's the frail old lady?
This is where it's not that she's impolite, it's just she's too proud to accept help.
Is she? I could see that, but is it that she's too proud to accept help? Or I always wonder this about old people. Do old people know that they're old? Like, what I mean by that is, in her mind, does her mind move slower so that, her digging through the change purse and handing you dime after dime after dime, she's like, this is a fast-paced thing going on here.
Yeah, I need to take a break.
And then dropping change is just something people do, and, because she's thinking in old people's terms?
It could be. And this topic started, Dan Bernstein from The Scorer started Am I a Bad Guy? It's a topic that he did. And his thing was, he was holding the door open for a guy with a wheelchair. And this guy started yelling at him, saying, I don't need your help. So then I started thinking about, like, a lot of different... I've had this problem with a blind guy, where he was walking and what he was going to walk into was not good for him. Not good for his health. It was in the middle of a road. And he just, it's like, I can do it. Go ahead and do it.
Like, as he's walking into the road, he's like, I could do it. Don't worry, I do this. He was getting into some blind frogger match.
Like, I've lived here for 14 years. I know what I'm doing. Okay. Go ahead. See where that step goes.
I don't think you're wrong in that case, because I think that, people got to realize, or like the Dan Bernstein example, holding the door open for the guy. He doesn't hold the door open just for disabled people. If I was looking at my phone and about to walk into traffic, I could see perfectly fine. You would do the same thing. You'd go, hey, Bokeen, you're gonna die. So I don't think that the disabled thing changes anything. And I've actually got a really bad disabled story that's kind of sidetracked if you guys are interested.
I'm always interested in bad disabled stories.
Oh, this one. This is when I was, I'm thinking probably 19, 20 years old. And I'm driving on a Saturday morning. If I was 19 or 20, I was probably stoned at the time, I'll be honest. And I was driving through Oak Park, the main drag in Oak Park, and I hadn't driven there much before, so I wasn't used to the fact that the crosswalk means that the pedestrians have the right of way. I didn't know that that's what it meant, whatever you call it, checkered, or the row of lines for a crosswalk. I know it now, but I didn't know it then. So I'm driving, and I get into one of those kind of standoff things where I'm just 20 miles an hour moving along, and the guy's in, there's a couple people in the crosswalk, and I'm like, well, what the hell? I honk my horn, whatever. I keep going. This happens a couple times where I have these weird standoffs, and I just don't know that this is, this is the rule of the land. I'm like, these people are assholes. So anyway, guy comes up to my car, passenger side door, He's got his hands on my door, and he's screaming at me. He's like, what the hell is your fucking problem? You know, you're honking at people. We have the right of way, blah, blah, blah. I'm just looking straight forward. I'm like waiting for the light to change. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, whatever. I didn't know. And he just keeps yelling at me. And I'm not even looking at the guy. I'm just like waiting for the light to change. Like, this is uncomfortable. So the guy's just yelling at me, and I notice that the other light's changing, the crossing light. So I'm going to be getting a green soon. So I grab my mag light, which I had in my car, and take it. And he's still got his hands on my door. And I reach over, and I slam his hands with this mag light, okay? And he's, whatever. And then I drive. I'm like, ha, 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 hilarious. I look in my rearview mirror. Dude's in a wheelchair. Dude had wheeled up to my fucking car. And he had his hands there because he's kind of like, you know, he down low, you know, kind of like, I don't know, lifting himself so he can actually look at me in the face and yell at me. So, yeah, that was one of my finest moments.
Now imagine that story, but him telling it to his friends. Like, put yourself in his wheelchair.
This guy starts clubbing me.
He took out his flashlight, just started hitting me. God, what an asshole.
And here's the thing. I swung that fucker hard. Like, there is a decent chance that I broke a finger or something like that, or a couple fingers. So you got this guy in a wheelchair who's got to push himself around, and now he's got a broken right hand. Great. Yeah. So I know it doesn't have to do with etiquette, but if you want to loop it back to being polite and etiquette, that was not polite of me.
That could go in our store. Go ahead, Louis.
No, anytime anybody's going to place their hands on your vehicle, though, or any other possession of yours, when they really, no matter what their argument is, they still don't have the reason to put themselves that far into your space. So, yeah, it's awkward. I'd probably feel the same way you did afterwards, but I don't know. If it came down to, am I a bad guy, I would still probably have to say, no. I mean, you didn't go, you know what? I'm going to take my mag light. I'm going to beat up this guy in the wheelchair. I'm going to break this guy's hands. Why is this guy on my car? I want to drive away.
The first 3 disabled people I see, I'm going to hit them with a flashlight.
No, that'd be different. Yeah, that'd be bad. That would definitely be bad.
But Louis, also keep in mind, part of the reason I feel bad is because I was wrong in the first place. Because I was driving, what amounts to me driving like a dick, when what I should have been doing is yielding to these pedestrians. And I'm like, out of my way, you fucking assholes! Like, down this entire main drag of downtown Oak Park. So
I know how that drag is, though, and it can be. It's really frustrating to be in a car and know that if there was nobody there, you could get where you needed to be in about 30 seconds. But instead, it's going to take you 15 minutes. It's irritating.
It is, and I don't understand, like, what makes Oak Park so damn special that they need those special crosswalks and just can't put, I don't know, a stop sign or have people cross at the lights? Mm-hmm. Because there's one right off of Harlem. There's the light at Harlem, and then you go like 35 feet, and there's a crosswalk. Well, there's a light 35 feet away. Why can't you cross there? I don't get that.
And they have the signs all over that, if a pedestrian enters the crosswalk, they have the right of way. No, that's not. They should be able to cross like people do at any other intersection in the country. You go to the stoplight, you get your right of way, you cross the street, and then the cars get to go. It works really well.
No, that you're right. And that strip of that street there, that main drag, more closely resembles like Brookfield Zoo than any other street I've driven on. Like, how in Brookfield Zoo the workers they're driving the tram or whatever. I don't know what the hell the stuff's called, or they're driving the little four-wheeler. They have to yield to any pedestrians in their way. That's the only other place that I know that stuff flies.
Yep.
All
right, well, Bokeen, thanks for joining us again. Let everyone know how they can find you on Twitter and how they can listen to your show.
Sure thing. On Twitter, you can find me at Bokeen. That's Bokeen. Hope you don't mind vulgarity because I bring a lot of it. And the podcast that I co-host with my girlfriend, Ms. Chartreuse, it is Consumption Junction, the intersection of ratchet and reason. I'm the unreasonable ratchet person, and Ms. Chartreuse is the more reasonable, level-headed one. It's a good mix. You can find us at ConsumptionJCT.com.
Well, Bokeen, thanks for joining us. As always, you're an awesome follow. I'd say follow him on Twitter, definitely. There's some good stuff going on.